So now we're going to talk about protozoa. So like I mentioned previously, algae are kind of plant-like. The slime molds and water molds are kind of mold-like or fungi-like. And the protozoa are animal-like. So most protozoa are single-celled, heterotrophic, and motile. So single-celled, they're just made up of one cell. Heterotrophic means that they eat other organisms in order to survive, and motile, which means that they can move. The flagellated protozoa have one or more flagella. Many of these species cause disease. So many species of protozoa in general have the ability to cause disease. So this is a picture of Trichomonas. So Trichomonas vaginalis causes trichomoniasis. This is the one of the biggest causes of STDs in the world. So it's very common as an STD, but it's this thing and it's got these little flagella on it and it can swim and move around. And usually when you see them under a microscope from a vaginal sample, they're like spinning around in circles, and that one can cause a lot of irritation and that type of stuff. So Trecomonas is one of them. This one is Trypanosoma. Trypanosoma brucei causes African sleeping sickness. Trypanosoma cruzi causes Chagas disease. Similar types of symptoms, it's just depending on the part of the world where they're found. These are transmitted by this bug called a kissing bug. And the kissing bug it's a pretty big bug, it's almost an inch long. And they usually climb on you while you're sleeping, and they like to bite near your mouth. So that's why they call them the kissing bug. And then they have these large needle-like mouth parts, and they're going to poke that into your skin near your mouth while you're sleeping. They suck your blood, and when they're bringing in new blood, they're going to defecate on the surface of the skin. They defecate out these guys, and these guys are then going to go into that open wound and infect you that way, and they cause a lot of crazy symptoms. So those are some of the flagellated protozoans. There's also this one called Giardia. Giardia looks kind of like this. We'll get an opportunity to see some of these under the microscope. But then it's got these nuclei that kind of look like eyes, and then this thing that goes down the center, and then it has flagella here and flagella here. And then there's this little DNA chunk in here where it kind of looks like a smiley face. So when you look at these under the microscope, that's what I usually look for when diagnosing giardiasis, is looking for the presence of that smiley face. Well, Giardia coats your intestines and prevents the absorption of nutrients. So it causes wide variety of symptoms, mostly revolving around diarrhea, fat in the stool, weight loss, and so forth. And that's one of the leading causes of traveler's diarrhea. Amoeboid protozoa produce extensions known as pseudopodia, so that's how they move. So the flagellates move using flagella, or the amoeba move using pseudopodia, or pseudopods. Those are important in locomotion and capturing food. So they will extend out one of these, and then the rest of the body kind of oozes forward, and then they'll extend it out again, and then the rest of the body oozes forward. And when I say body, this is one cell. It's a single-celled organism, and that's what makes up the entire body of the organism. It's just one cell. An amoeboid protozoan called Entamoeba histolytica can cause fever and severe diarrhea in humans. Infection often occurs through lake water, also like unclean vegetables traveling to other parts of the world with poor water hygiene and drinking water, eating ice that was prepared from unhygienic water, and so forth. This one, Entamoeba histolytica, actually can eat holes through your intestinal wall, and then it can start to infect all of the other organs in your abdominal cavity. So it causes these like microbleeds, and it causes like anemia sometimes. So this one can become pretty serious. Ciliates. Ciliates move using cilia. So they have cilia all around their surface or clustered on one end, and that's how they're going to move. It organ forward, and it also sweeps food into the cell. There's only one real main pathogen and that's called Bacillium coli diarrhea. The apicomplexans. So there's many apicomplexans that cause disease. They're non-motile. So these ones don't have an obvious motile or motility structure. They're spore forming and they are animals. Here you can see Cryptosporidium parvum. Cryptosporidium caused a major outbreak in the 90s in Milwaukee, where 100,000 people were infected, and several people end up dying of infection. Very common in pools because chlorine does not kill these things. So people think that they're safe. They take a nice big drink of water. If anyone in that pool has Cryptosporidium in them or on them or like around their anus while they jump into the pool, it can infect the entire pool. It'll replicate like crazy in that water source, and then people can end up getting infected. Most are due to water from water treatment plants where they happen to have the spores pass through the water supply or through public swimming sources like pools. So again, the apicomplexan shown to the right, colloquially called Cryptosporidium, spreads in pool water and causes digestive problems in infected individuals. Before I get to malaria, there's another apicomplexan that I want to mention, and that's Toxoplasma Gondii. If you've ever heard that pregnant women shouldn't clean out the litter box, it's due to this Toxoplasma Gondii organism. So what happens is a cat eats an animal that is infected with Toxoplasma Gondii. This toxoplasma is encysted in the muscle tissue of the animal. So they're little cysts, and it's kind of a little worm-like parasite that's found in the muscle. So the cat eats that muscle tissue, and the cat gets infected. When a cat gets infected, it just poops it out. So the organism passes through the cat. But if that cat is pooping in a litter box in your house, and then you go and clean out the litter box, what passes out of the egg, or out of the cat, are kind of the cyst forms, and those cysts aerosolize while you're cleaning out the litter box. So you breathe them in, and they end up getting into your nasal cavity or getting into your mouth. They're going to hatch open inside of your body, and now they start to migrate through your tissues. They migrate into your muscle tissue where they form cysts. And the only way that they would be able to complete their life cycle is if a large cat were to eat you, because then those cysts would be able to escape and go into the cat to complete their life cycle. Most of us don't get eaten by large cats, so that's a good thing. But where it does become a problem is during pregnancy. If a woman gets this while they're pregnant, and if it's their first time being exposed to Toxoplasma Gondii during pregnancy, then when they're migrating through the tissues, instead of just going into the mother's muscle tissue, they're also going to pass into the placenta and cross into the baby, and they can cause some serious developmental problems, including deafness, blindness, mental retardation, and up to and including stillbirth and miscarriages. So it's very serious when you get Toxoplasma Gondii during pregnancy, or toxoplasmosis. So moving on to this one, so Plasmodium. Malaria is caused by an apicomplexan protist called Plasmodium. The life cycle of Plasmodium is shown here and on the next slide. So basically what happens with malaria, there's many different species that cause malaria. Plasmodium falciparum causes the most fatal form of malaria, and that's endemic to parts of Africa and the Middle East. Plasmodium vivax is the next most common and the next most dangerous, and that one's kind of confined more to parts of Asia and South America. Then there's Noalsi and Ovale, and those are two other species. They have some cross-infectivity to non-human primates as well. And then there's a bunch of forms that only infect the non-human primates, so different types of monkeys and apes. So, malaria has to be transmitted by a mosquito. The Anopheles mosquito, so a female mosquito, is going to take a blood meal when she's trying to produce eggs. only female mosquitoes bite you because only female mosquitoes are going to need the blood in order to make eggs. When she is trying to drink your blood, she's going to spit into your wound. And when she spits into you, she's spitting in an anticoagulant so that she can freely drink your blood. Well, spitting into you with that anticoagulant, sometimes she also, if she's infected, she also spits in Plasmodium, the malaria parasite. That parasite first goes to the liver, and it passes through the liver and turns into a form that can now infect your blood cells. So, goes into the liver, sporozoites infect, turn into merozoites, the merozoites are released, and then they go infect your blood cells. When they get inside of your blood cells, they cause your blood cells to become sticky, and your blood cells eventually stick to the blood vessel walls. This prevents them from being cleared from the bloodstream by the spleen, because all of your blood gets filtered out in the spleen. The spleen is this organ that's kind of on the left side of the body and underneath the stomach a little bit, but that organ is designed to filter out any red blood cell that looks abnormal. So to prevent clearance from the body, the red blood cells become sticky and they stick to your blood vessel walls. They also start to form these things called rosettes, and rosettes means that the red blood cells are clumped together in these flower-shaped like patterns. So while they're sticking to your blood vessel walls, this parasite is replicating inside. And then as soon as it's done replicating, your red blood cells are going to burst, and that's going to release all of the merozoites from those red blood cells. When your red blood cells burst, it causes a sudden increase in body temperature, and that severe and sudden fever can sometimes cause convulsions. So people that are infected will have kind of every 2 days, they'll have the rupturing of the red blood cells and the release of merozoites, which causes a spike in their body temperature and crazy convulsions. And then the merozoites will go infect new blood cells, and they'll go kind of hide inside of those blood cells. Well, then you're going to have another cycle where they rupture out, you're going to have the elevated body temperature, and they're going to have the convulsions, and then it kind of goes back to normal. So this can happen every 2 days for several months unless you get treatment. Even with treatment, now malaria is becoming resistant to all of the antimalarial drugs. So it's a pretty serious thing. How people end up dying from this is when these red blood cells stick to the blood vessel walls, they can cause blockages, and they can block certain parts of the brain and cause stroke, called cerebral malaria. They can block certain parts of the heart and cause heart issues. They can block pathways leading to certain organs and can cause organ failure. And the massive hemolysis or breaking open of these red blood cells can cause temporary liver dysfunction, especially since the parasites are passing through the liver, and that can lead to jaundice in some cases, but this can end up killing people.